Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. I am here today with Colin. Now, before we start chatting to Colin, just a couple of bits of housekeeping as usual. First of all, a thanks to our sponsor, Avonmore Capital. Avonmore Capital is a bridging and development lender based here at Cannon Place in London, in the City of London. Avonmore Capital lends between £250,000 and £25 million across bridging, development and refurb. You might have seen in the news about a recent funding line announcement that we made, and that will enable us to be even more efficient and effective at the refurb solutions, but we're still just as good at development and PCDs as we always have been. Now, last bit of housekeeping is if you are not a subscriber to the Property Funder podcast, can I please ask you to subscribe to the podcast and give us a 5-star review? That means that we can get more people watching and listening to great content from great guests that we've got here today, like Colin. Now, Colin, thank you for your patience and putting up with all of that. Good to have you here. I think many of our audience will probably already know who you are, but if they don't, could you please just give us your name and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So thanks for having me, first and foremost. My name is Colin. God knows why my parents decided to call me Colin. I don't know who looks at a baby and thinks baby Colin, but here I am. I am a surveyor by trade from Essex, as you can probably tell. And I'm very blessed to be owner of Project&Co, which is a multidisciplinary surveying firm, which I specialise in valuations for lending and leasehold enfranchisement. And I also host arguably some of the largest networking events in the sector. I've also got a failed TV career, which I'm sure you might ask me about at some point. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, mate.
Okay, well, I did have a question I wanted to lead in with, which was definitely going to be spicy. But then you just said you had a failed TV career, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what was it? Were you in Towie or
no? So
saying you're from Essex?
Obviously, at the moment, you've got what's it called? Buying London or Selling London.
We've
Daniel.
Had Daniel on. Yeah.
About the same time that this was getting cast a while back, this would have been April 2022. I got approached by Channel 4 for this new property show, and there was 2 approaches going on by the casting crew. There was one for that show, and there was one for the show that I happened to be on, called Selling Super Houses, which is a god awful name. And it was funded by Paul Kemsley, PK, who a lot of people listening to this will probably know, maybe through his old purchase of the Ned back in the day, or many property deals that he has done. And it was basically billed to me as this new property apprentice, and it was going to be competing against the top agents in the country. I was a valuation surveyor, but a bit of an egotistical lad that I was. I thought I'd give it a good go and just kind of show the world that there's more to London than PCL estate agents. So 5 rounds of interviews and casting calls and all this jazz. And I landed in Vegas. It was like April the 25th. It all happened very, very quickly. And first night, there's like, oh, Cole, you're going to be on the show. You're one of the 8 people. And as you can imagine, I spent a lot of money that night in Vegas and don't remember the rest of the holiday. And I got back, and it was a really surreal moment, because you think your whole life's going to completely change. You think you've become this rich and famous guy. And at the moment, I was trying to run 2 firms. I had a valuation practice, and I had the building surveying practice as well. And I was having to kind of mentally prepare, like, how the hell am I going to do this? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm not the best businessman by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a good surveyor. But I somehow ended up in a point where I've got these 2 other businesses. I've got to run them and do this show. I was like, what are the timings? How does it work? If you get through all the way, it's 12 weeks of 12-hour days, Monday to Friday. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we can make that work. And we got there, the filming started, and it was a culture shock. I was not ready for it at all. And every insecurity that you possibly have about yourself, you realise it within 2 seconds of seeing yourself on the camera. Because you start seeing, like, you ask to see the camera from, if you get on with the cast and crew, they'll show you behind the scenes on the camera. And that first week, I really struggled. Like, this is not what I thought TV was about. We'd have a chat now. They'd make us re-record this chat 5 times till they get the outcome that they want from that conversation. So we do like a Vox, they call it. So we film something, and then they would have a little interview, like you see on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, Michael was a great guy, like top bloke, blah, blah, blah. By the end of these questioning and targeted questions, and never tell you what to say, they kind of got out of it, oh, I think Michael's an absolute twat. and they proper frame it like that. And you really have to like kind of come out of yourself and think, why am I doing this? What is the bigger picture? And I was like, I knew I wanted to grow the brand for my business, to grow the brand for myself. We can touch on that later, but I'm a big believer in personal brand. I think it's going to carry you a long way. And cut a really long story short, end up getting to the final. I think we had 3 of the houses that were on my show on Buy in London. And it just shows how stupid it is. Like these properties that have been listed for like 6 or 7 months, like years. No one wants to bloody buy them. And it was all so contrived. And you know, like when you watch The Apprentice and you look at the show and you think, why are they doing that? Like, why on earth would they do that? Why would they design that logo, or why would they do that? Because they've got no options. They're forced to choose between 2 or 3 scenarios, which you won't see on camera. And it's all designed to make you look stupid. And anyway, I got through all the way through to the final. About 6 weeks before I actually went on the show, little did I know what company would be kind of the base of this show. I was looking to exit a company, and I'd actually sent over my deck to this said company before I even knew they were involved with the show. So I was like, I'm a shoo-in. I'm obviously going to win this show. And you won a job, basically, as an agent. I didn't need a job because I had 2 jobs fundamentally, and I didn't win somehow. And but no one got offered the job. It was just an absolute.
So it just the whole the concept was flawed from the start, and it was completely fake and contrived. And I mean, as someone who's enjoyed buying London and also quite enjoys every season of Selling Sunset, I find them quite curious shows to want to be involved with as a principal or owner of those businesses. Presumably, because of the sort of, let's be honest, if everyone in the office got on really well, and all they ever did was, you know, effectively go out and do viewings and run good sales processes, it wouldn't make very good TV. I mean, what do you make? I mean, presumably you've watched some of these episodes. What do you make of them?
So Rasa from the show, from Buy in London, is my good friend from my show.
Right. Okay.
So she was on my show, and they didn't give her a shot. She was so fiery, but so passionate, and actually generally wanted to be an estate agent.
Is that how she is in real life?
Yeah, she was by far the most authentic person that I think I've met on the show. I've got some really great friends on that show, but she didn't get the chance that she deserved. And I was so happy for her when she kind of got on that show. And I feel like she's the star of the show. Really. She really does add a bit of spice to it. And it is weird because what I said to her when I was getting casted for it, it's like, is this reality or is it like reality? Yeah. Like, am I going to be, I don't want to be put in a situation where I've got to, you know, construct relationships and stuff like that. That's not what I want. That's not what I'm about. I'm on this to grow my brand. They promised me massive marketing budget. This is going to go out prime time. This is going to change your life, all this stuff. And then we finished filming in July of 2022. Didn't come out till August 2023. So for a whole year, you're sitting there. You don't know how your life's going to change. You don't know what they're going to dig up about you. You don't know. Like, I'm a lad from Essex. I've probably said stuff in the past that in today's world will get me absolutely, you know, hung, drawn, and quartered. And it was a really hard part of my life, that 12 months, not knowing what's going to happen with your career and how they're going to make me look. You don't see the episodes till they come out, and you're just sitting there. I was like, oh my God, what have they done to me? So if I would personally never go on a reality show that was purely constructed, like the Selling Sunsets of this world, which are purely it's all fictional.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see that. I think you can also see that with Buying London as well. You're just a bit like, right, so some of this drama is just so manufactured, isn't it? And it was weird because I think a lot of people asked me about that when it came out, about the show and stuff. And like, there's the obvious thing to be a bit jealous of the success, because the success was great. Like, they've done so well from the show. Like, we were prime time, we were Channel 4, 9 o'clock. Like, we had a great slot, but it just didn't work. There was no marketing, there was nothing. I felt really let down by the channel. And there is that part of you that is a little bit resentful. You're, you know, speaking very honestly, of course you're like, oh, I want that success. Like, I want that to be us. And I did find it quite hard when people
I'd say hard. What I really enjoy, controversially, is all the prime central London agents like slagging it off, like blah 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 blah. It's like, but the buying London guys, or DDRE, they're the ones that are on TV. They're the ones that are on all around the world. I'd much rather be in their position with all the free branding that they've got. Like, I think it was a masterstroke getting on the show. I think personally, I think it's going, especially the model that they've got there and that self-employed model. I think it's a great. Like, why would you not want it? If there's an opportunity for you to maybe get on Netflix, you're going to get so many people come and work for you. So.
Yeah, and knowing some of the people that work for Daniel, if you don't want to be on TV, you don't want, there's a guy I know called Benji Weinberger, a great agent. He doesn't feature in the show. I said to my wife, "Where's Benji? He's not on the show." And I think I think it's, for some people, they just want to get on and do the work, and let their work do the talking for them. And others, they like that place in the spotlight, and they're like, and they're like, look at me, look at me, look at me. If I'm a client, in that situation, I'd be a bit torn, because on the one hand, do you want your property to feature some, slightly immature high school teenage girl argument, but on the other hand, you're going to get really good exposure. So,
well, I think that's one thing. I think they probably don't mention it, but I think the properties that were listed on the show aren't ones that are actually getting sold. Because, like I said, two or three of them were on my show, and we weren't selling them. So I think they obviously, I'm sure, because you're bang on, you're completely right. Especially these ultra high net worths, they don't want their house being. These are discrete transactions.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, and Daniel himself talks about he talks about effectively what sets them apart and people of his caliber apart is that you go to someone like that because the properties that they have available are not listed anywhere. They're not available. They are completely off market. I mean, when you hear that expression off market, what do you normally think about? What's the image that's coming into your mind?
I look down the email chain to see how many fonts there are, how many times it's been sent around, and that always amazes me when you get sent this off market, because we like the off market stuff ourselves when we buy stuff, and it's like, why have you not just at least get the fonts right? Like, just make it look like you have actually got this directly, but nothing's ever off market, is it really? Unless it's. But best of luck to the guys on the show. I'm sure there'll be multiple seasons of it, and I'm sure they'll do well. And I think they'll get what they want out of it. And but I think the long-term agenda isn't necessarily what people think it is. I think they'll make a lot of money out of it, and I think they'll do well. Yeah,
well, the most successful on for them will transcend just being traditional real estate agents and move to outright celebrities in their own right, influencers in their own right. I mean, Daniel's sort of already there anyway, isn't he? But some of the other agents on the show, obviously, especially the girls, they're going to build followings very quickly.
Like Rasa, she was a Lithuanian pop star.
Was she really?
Yeah,
I'm not surprised.
40,000 followers already.
Yeah,
I remember on the show. This is how bad I one did. I think I had 11 people come up to me in the whole time it was on. Like, bear in mind, it's just prime time, 9 o'clock stuff, which is quite demoralising. But I'll leave on this anecdote of this part, I guess. But I got a new sofa a couple of months ago when I moved house, and I got it from one of those furniture outlet stores. I didn't really think anything of it, and the guy was like, "Oh, can you give me a hand moving it in?" I was like, "Yeah, no worries." Obviously thought I was a strong lad, but I literally just tore my bicep at the time. You can probably see there that it's completely torn. Yeah, it's horrible, mate. But anyway, he's looking at me a bit funny, and I was like, "Why is he looking at me a bit weird?" And then as he dropped the sofa off, he's about to walk out, and he just goes, "You should have won, mate." And the shock on my face that someone had actually watched the show and remembered me, I was emotional. And my missus was like, "You're right." I was like, yeah. And I spoke to him for about an hour about everything. And it was so wonderful to think, that could have been what the experience might have actually been like. Because I always wanted to be one of those guys, if I ever met someone, so I was famous and never am going to be, but if I was, that I'd always be one of those ones that you should meet your heroes. Because that's what I always wanted to be. That's the type of guy I wanted to be. But yeah, that was it, that kind of summed up the whole experience for me. But I'm still really good friends with 2 of the guys now from the show, and we still keep in touch. And Yeah, I just feel sorry for the ones that maybe had the dream that it was going to be a big life-changing thing. I was lucky that I had a life before it, another life after it, and it was I wouldn't change anything about the experience, just maybe a little bit about the result. But hey ho, we're here now. So
you're here. You are. Yeah, you wanted fame and fortune, and you found yourself on my podcast. So
mate, it's work, mate. I'll take this, mate.
But how's the experience changed you? Like, what were your kind of, what were the key positives that you took from it, and then, but on reflection as well, what have you changed about yourself for the positive?
Yes,
on the back of that experience.
No, great question. I'm inherently quite an insecure chap, which probably you can tell by the fact I go to the gym all the time, get tattoos, and I'm one of those ones always trying to cover up my own insecurities. And I don't mind speaking about that. And because when I grew up, I was this poor little kid, like a single parent background, like didn't have any cash. And I mean, people say they're poor, like we were poor, and I was fat, horribly pasty, like these horrible buck teeth. Hence why we know that dentist in South Church Road. They said I had to have a head brace. It was traumatic.
Oh my god!
I was like, no way.
We're going to a state school as a teenager with a head brace.
Oh mate, I would have been annihilated. It would have been game over for me. And so to think I'd ever be on national television was beyond me, And when I set the business up, you start to get a bit more confident, and you grow into yourself a little bit more. You start to get a bit more like confidence. And I still remember when I met these two guys. I was at a Regis group at the time, and I was at the top of my game in terms of my asset management skills.
So you worked for Nicky Gould?
Yeah, love Nick. Yeah. Like he was a great role model for me. Like growing up, I barely saw him, but he was incredible. And I remember we were instructing Savills on the matter, and I'd never met a posh person in my entire life. Right, like I barely got up to London. We went up to Mount Street in Mayfair. I met these two lovely chaps from Savills, and they were like charming, lovely guys as you'd expect, and there was no animosity. They were just being really nice. And I was, like I said, I was the creme de la creme at the time of what I was doing. I was doing like 12 million quid worth a year of lease extensions across 400 or 500 different ones, like a lot. I couldn't talk. I couldn't get any of my words out. I was completely shaking. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but I just could not talk. And I was so embarrassed. I was sweating. And they were like, "Are you all right?" I was like, I just couldn't talk at all. I was so nervous. And it was exact that point in time that I was like, I've got to change everything about who I am, like value myself. So that then I decided to put myself forward for every single opportunity that came along. And fast forward a couple of years, the show opportunity came along. And I'm so glad I'd done it, because it taught me that you've got to love who you are, and watching myself back on TV, I actually thought, actually, I'm an all right guy. Like, I'm actually quite funny. Like, I was coming across well. Like, the reaction on Twitter and stuff was good. And I was like, I can't be that bad, really, because I was completely myself. I wasn't any of this fake stuff. I was generally me the whole way through it. I was helping the team behind the scenes. I was giving like long-range data for when we had to pitch, like taking no credit for anything. And it really did like flick a switch in me, because I think when you have that arrogance, you think you're going to be, you're invincible, you could be famous and on telly. And then when it doesn't actually happen, you're humbled really quickly, like really, really quickly, because all your friends and family think, oh, my mate's going to be famous, blah, 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 blah. Then you're not. That taught me a lot. And I've generally changed and matured so much since then. I've got a fantastic partner who I love to bits, and so much more grounded. Like between like 2018 and 2021, mate, I was a right little hooligan. And now I've just completely like mellowed out and just completely trying to change, I think, people's perspective of me. Because the reputation, not that it's ever bad, but just this like fun BD guy that's always out, will happily stay out till 1, 2 a.m, like drinking, whatever. And that's not the guy I want to be anymore. I want to be like a role model. Like, obviously, we've got Zach with us today, like doing the work experience and stuff. Like, I went and spoke at the University of Law last week, trying to help some of the students on like business development and stuff. And I just want to use the platform that the show's given me now, in a really long-winded answer to your question, to kind of do good, really. Like, just to kind of help the other little Collins out there in the world, of which there are many who probably don't think they've got a chance.
But you talked about looking at the Twitter responses, how people were responding to how you were on camera. You also talked about being quite insecure. I personally, obviously I have some public persona via the podcast, but not national TV, in my mind, thankfully. you know, do you not see that there's if you see enough negative comments on Twitter, that's really going to drive your insecurity and take you down dark rabbit holes? How did you approach that? Because inevitably there's always going to be some wanker who's going to go and have a pop, right?
Yeah, you're bang on. It's like you're fueling the fire insecurity if you start reading the comments.
Yeah.
But I would love to see someone that will go on national TV and not read the comments, because you're gonna want to do it. You're googling your name and stuff. And 2 little anecdotes from this. It was luckily there was nothing too negative. The most negative stuff was on my local press on the website. So we had the front cover of the
South End Echo.
South End Echo. I was on the front cover. Great little picture, actually. It was lovely. My mum bought about 17 copies of it. I've actually got it hanged up. And the comments were bonkers, mate. I don't know what was going on there. I thought I was getting like deliberately trolled. I don't know if you know Wish, the website. Like it's like cheap versions of stuff. And then like we're getting called like Wish versions of The Apprentice. What else did I get called? There was one that was really, really insulting. It was like a poor man's version of a Lidl's model. And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's a bit much, isn't it? And then my friends, bless them, were good as gold. So they basically set up Twitter accounts for me. So every time the show came out or there was an episode on, they would all, like they're legends, they would all just start like counter trolling and like putting out really good positive comments on it. It was lovely. Like it was really, really, really nice. But it's a funny place, the comments on the comment section. And I always think to myself, like people will only comment if they're not happy with their own lives, And I get the odd comment now about my LinkedIn and stuff. Like I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like you don't have to comment. Like you don't have to follow me. You don't have to do anything. Like I had some guy come up to me at an event, tiny guy, like yay high, and he's like, "You're LinkedIn shit, mate." And I was like, "What?" Like I'm not confrontation. I'm there to fight for life. And I was like, why would you even bring that up? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you say that to me? Like, and he wouldn't really justify it and that. And I was just like, well, I just don't understand people sometimes. So I've just really tried now to just zone out of that and just try and focus on just being a better version of myself. But you are right. It is hard not to see the negative comments from people in any form of life. Like you could have 10 beautiful women to call you the sexiest man in the world today. And then you have one.
But they're only human.
Yeah, you could look at that, mate, to be fair.
Well, back at you, mate. I live in the world of reality. I'll be honest. Yeah.
But you have one woman to say one thing about you that you're a little bit insecure about on the way home. So you got a massive this or a small this or whatever. That's the comment you'll remember, not the 10 wonderful comments that you're getting as well. It's that one little comment that you're focused on, and I think that's where I've kind of matured a little bit and just got over that now, because it is what it is. You can't be perfect.
I mean, I think, I'd be, if someone said to me, "You're LinkedIn shit," I'd say, I don't know how I'd respond to that. But I think what I'd like to do is go, all right, mate, show me your LinkedIn. Show me your posts. I'm pretty sure someone who tells you you're LinkedIn shit, right, as a bit of feedback, hasn't posted anything in like forever. Yeah. They probably don't even have a profile photo, half of them, and I posted something which was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke or play at Man City, and then someone didn't understand the joke, right? And they said, and it was basically like a comparison of Lance Armstrong to Man City, but then without mentioning them, and a couple of people were like, so and one person said, "Oh, you need to take this post down, mate. You're embarrassing yourself here." And I'm like, "I don't think and I replied, I was just like, I don't think you've understood the joke here, mate. Just, it's just, people are weird." And you're just like, and these are commercial mortgage brokers that need, that will be asking us to fund their clients' deals. Like, really? You don't need aggro. You don't need aggro at any point in your life, especially not. What do you gain about giving out to something? It was like 9 o'clock on a Friday night. You're like, mate,
jealousy.
Put the beer down. Put the beer down, or whatever you've been drinking. Put your phone down. Do something else with your time. I mean, if you're replying to comments at 9 o'clock or 9:30 on a Friday night, you've got serious problems, mate.
I completely agree. But those people are out there. Sadly, there's not much we can do about it.
I had a former colleague replied to a LinkedIn post of mine years ago, probably about 3 years ago, and he's like, "Grow up, Michael," right? And it made absolutely no sense. It bore no connection with the actual post I made, and he made the comment at like 2 a.m. on a like Friday night. I'm like, all right, Robert, you're done. You and me are done. Remove connection, block. Thank you very much. Don't need you in my life. All done.
How do people get out of that? I just don't understand.
That's madness. It's absolute madness. Anyway, let's just change tack a little bit. So you were telling us about how you work for the Regis Group. Obviously, I know Regis Group reasonably well because, ironically, Nicky Gould was a patient of my father-in-law.
Oh, wow.
In his practice in Westcliff. So we've known the family for a very long time. But so how did you find yourself getting into the world of surveying?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really academic at school. I struggled academically. I didn't really find myself. And I went to work at a call centre. I'd done my A-levels and then went to work at a call centre because I didn't have any ambition for myself. I'll be honest with you, I didn't ever think it was possible. And then my mate rang me up and said, "Oh, Carl, we're down Portsmouth Uni. They've got a really good Weatherspoons. Do you want to come uni?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right." So I didn't even look. I just went to Portsmouth and they've got a really good property thing there.
Exactly.
And I've done property development, design and marketing at Portsmouth. Came out of uni and then went and work in property. And this job came up as asset manager. And I'll be honest, I thought, that's pretty sexy. That's a sexy job title. Didn't really know anything about asset management. And I think it was paying 23 grand a year. So it was pretty good at the time for a 21-year-old fresh out of uni. And I was like, I'll take that. And little did I know it was the best move I've ever done in my entire life. I came into this office and it was lease extensions. And I was like, lease extension, I don't know what it is. I don't know what lease extension is. I don't know what leasehold is. I don't know. I've never dealt with this before in my life. And it was incredible. Like, obviously, Nick was a lot more involved in the company. Like, he was there a lot more and just used to come in and just incite these words of wisdom. Like, how often do you get to be in the presence of someone that has amassed such an incredible business all across the world, not just in England, across the world. And I was in this little, I'm a United fan, and it's a bit like the class of 92. So I was in the group of lads, all similar ages, all incredibly bright, and we were the asset management team. There was myself, there was a guy called Todd Harrison Moore, I don't know if you know him, incredibly smart lad, like really smart, he's done it incredibly well. Dan Harrison, who's still now, he's the MD of peer management, who are the asset management on behalf of Regis. A guy called James Barker, who's now my head of valuation at my firm. A guy called Aaron Daniels. And we were just this incredible little team. And me and James and Todd were doing the lease extensions. And it was at a time when, looking back on it now, it's a time where I called it the fun time. It was a time of entrepreneurialism because we had a great MD who gave us the chance to really try and sweat the assets, so to speak. And yeah, that was it, mate. I was there for 8 years, got to heading up the asset management team, doing 12 million quid a year in lease extensions, of which profit was probably 3-4 million. Like, it was a lot. And that was just me on my own at this point. It was nuts. It was incredible.
And it's mad to think that those lease extensions would be on a small proportion of the freehold assets that Regis owned, which I think the story goes that, back in the day, it was Nicky's father used to get the bus from Southend to the West End and buy these freeholds in auctions back in the late 40s and 50s starting, and then just consistently just kept buying, and then eventually the leases needed extending, and they made loads of money.
Incredible model, mate. And it was at the time when everyone was refinancing and when institutional money came into the sector.
Yeah.
And that's where it became really interesting and really exciting. And little did I know that would be the catapult for my career. But one thing I would say, because I know a lot of people, maybe not listeners of this because they've got a brain, but people are very quick to jump on freeholders and, saying how unscrupulous they are and stuff. And they're businessmen and their assets, and their job is to make the most out of the assets. And every time I was there, everything was done incredibly ethically. They actually really cared about all their leaseholders as much as you can when you've got a relationship like that, which is so removed from freeholder to a leaseholder. It's a very removed relationship. And
well, if you're looking after, if you've got a block, say, with 100 flats in it, and you're looking after a lot of people's homes, you get that wrong, you're going to have you're very quickly going to have a local MP, local press all over you. So there's a strong logic as to make sure that you do a good job there.
Yeah, 100%. Don't get me wrong, there could be a bit more regulation than there is in freehold, but that's all changing. Everything's all changing. But Dan, who runs it at the moment, is an incredibly astute MD down there. He's only young, a bit older than me. So I'm young, but I'm excited for him in what is a very turbulent time, and a lot of it is out of their control now with the government just messing around with everything to do with leasehold. So, and that's how I got it, mate. And then basically quit there, reluctantly quit. I didn't want to quit.
Just before you go any further, and so you obviously, when did you get your Rick's letters? You do that when I
done it at Regis. Didn't need it at first, but I quickly realised that to get to that next level, to get to where I wanted to get to, because when you have all the institutional money flying about, the institutional money likes institutional people. And I'm just this lad from Essex that was just a pure salesman on the phones, and I love maths, and I just, you just get something, something just clicks in your brain, you just completely understand it. Talking about like net present values, deferment rates, relativity, all this stuff, just got it. I just somehow just got it. And I was very lucky in that. I was like, I need to get the Rick stuff. I won't go on to all the Ricks. I'm not a massive fan of the whole, how it all works.
Well, if you want, I'm not a big fan. I resigned 4 years ago.
Yeah, so. It's really hard for me because I really respect what it is. I just wish things were done a little bit different to suit guys like myself, young guys who I don't work for a big corporate, who are trying to run a business. We've got 25 staff now, and I don't know if we get the support that we should do sometimes from an institution you do pay a lot of money to, and stuff like insurance and whatnot. It's almost like, they're your parents. You can't do anything about that, but you just wish you got more. You just wish you got more from them. And I'd love to work more collaborative, I can't even say it, with them. But I think where I'm a little bit different to the status quo, I don't know if I necessarily fit that brief. But I'm not a sales boy by any stretch of the imagination. So it's so when did you come away? 4 years ago?
4 years ago. I mean, haven't needed it. I didn't need it for best part of. You could make an argument. I never needed it. I mean, I qualified 2007, but I never really needed it at any point, because you'll find this very surprising. I managed to qualify without ever having done a single Red Book valuation. Yeah. I obviously followed the commercial agency pathway. And I think I was just about able to convince someone that doing a rental appraisal on an office building in the city was somehow close enough to a valuation that I could pass that module. But yeah, I never actually needed it at any point in my career. And I don't know why I didn't resign sooner, frankly.
Do you know what I think is interesting? I think where there might be a slight shift in the future is that I've got some fantastic surveyors at my firm who are better than most chartered surveyors, but when it comes down to that interview, it's a whole different kettle of fish, and they struggle because I think maybe it's the pressure or whatnot. But I'm not a huge believer in exam-based passing or failing. I don't think that's a marker of someone's ability to be able to do a job. And as a firm, it's not necessarily a prerequisite for us that you have to work for us. Obviously, when it comes down to secured lending work and everything, they know you have to follow a strict protocol. You've got to be MRICS. You've got to have two years PQE. You have to do that. But for a lot of various other aspects, like leasehold reform and stuff like that, I don't believe it's a necessity. And I really would love to see, RICS look at that now moving forward and start to look to the future and look to try and future-proof that profession in terms of getting the good people come through. Because at the moment, I think it's terrifying for young guys coming in thinking they get sued or get all these working groups. that, the little networking, oh guys, we're going to get sued if we mess this up. It's terrifying. If you're not like for me, I don't worry about that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I would just really like to see good talent stay in the sector and not leave like yourself. Like, look what you've done. You've done incredibly well and you don't want to do it anymore. And obviously I know you've gone down a different pathway, but there's going to be lots of Michaels out there like you who could stay in the sector if they felt that there was more to it or more opportunity and they got more from their institution. So I don't know.
I think that one of the biggest issues for me is that, outside of the surveying profession, there is little to no respect for the qualification. But in a list of professions, you would rank, if you say, doctor, lawyer, accountant, architect, structural engineer, I think surveyor, chartered surveyor, ranks probably below all of them, frankly. And you can tell me that you disagree with that. And fundamentally, is that a fair reflection? I think it's a bit harsh. I think it's a bit harsh at times, particularly for valuers. I think particularly for those really top end L&T surveyors. I think it is a really difficult. I think it is a bit unfair. But I also think that some of that falls on the RCS for the work that they've done or not done, should we say, in promoting the profession and promoting and
what three things do you think of when you think of Rex? 3 words or 1 word if you want.
Old. Yeah, old. I mean, I if I think of Ricks, I think of their building. I think of their building in at Westminster. In Westminster, opposite Houses of Parliament, and I feel like it just sort of is an organisation that rests on its laurels, and it just classic rent-seeking behaviour, effectively imposes a tax on people like yourself, and then what else? What are they doing? What are they doing to promote your profession?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've had a few discussions with some good people in Ricks because I've like you're saying, I feel quite passionate about it because I want to be part of it and I want it to be something that I'm generally really.
But you have no choice. Yeah. You have no choice. My argument would be, why do you have to be Emirates qualified to do a secured lending valuation?
Yeah, well, that's our problem. We you are right. You have no, and I think I spoke to him. I was like, it needs to be more approachable, and I think it needs to be modernised a tad. And like the elections and stuff. Like, look at that's a massive controversial point.
There's been a huge. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of scandal around.
There's no voting from outside members. There's no vote for me. It should be like a general election. I think there should be different age bands. I think there should be grads. I think so everyone's got a different voice in there. But I'd have to be careful what you say because and get hauled up for
I mean, that's the difficulty is that you don't want to bring the RCS into disrepute, right? Because that's going to that's another reason why you're going to get hauled over the coals, isn't it? So all right, well let's go a bit further into your career. So you left Regis / Peer. What came after that then?
So when I was at Regis Peer, I was earning good money, and it's like when you start turning you get a good wage, you get used to it. Your life, your expenses, get used to it. And I decided to make the move, and which was really hard, but I knew I had to do this for the rest, to further my career. And I was not worth what I thought I was worth. So I went to market thinking, I was going to go and get 80, 90, 100 grand, like straight off the bat as a 28-year-old surveyor. I was so wrong. Couldn't even get a job at Purple Bricks. Like, it was nuts. On like 30, 40, 35, 40 grand. I was like, this is actually terrifying. And because I was in as a person, at this time I was making quite good waves on LinkedIn at the time, and I ran something called Young Leasehold Professionals. So I set up a networking group to bring leasehold professionals together. So I was starting to amass a little bit of a network and a little bit of a brand. And a wonderful guy called Chris Baker took a punt on me as head of valuation for his firm in East London. And he was a great guy, like a proper genuine bloke, and I always wished the best for him. And I regret that I left him so soon. But me being the impatient little sod that I was there for about 6 to 8 months. And I started bringing on clients, and I knew I had the ability to bring on clients. And obviously when you're employed, but if you're employed and you've got a bit of sales about you and you can start to see the work that you're bringing in and then doing yourself, you quickly realize that you should probably set up on your own. And I've never done anything like that. My dad weren't around, so I didn't have anyone to really lean on. I had no male figures to speak to. So I had a couple of investors who were great chaps, but they were more mentoring investors, not necessarily cashback investors. And then we decided to set up and brought on Regis, 3 other managers, still clients to this day. And it was incredible, mate. I had money like it. I was money coming in. Could I run a business at that age of naivety? No, I wasn't ready at all. I was financially immature. Like I didn't really know what I was doing. But we started to grow. I think we'd done like 600 grand in the first year as a small little valuation practice for like 2 people. It was nuts. I mean, this stuff was great. But then leasehold really became part of the government's focus, and things started to shift a little bit. And I was very lucky about a year into the valuation practice starting that the building surveying opportunity came along. And me, Aaron, and the business partner John all came together as joint owners, and we set that up. Initially using all my property management contacts from my young leasehold professionals. And fast forward 5 years now, we've got 25 staff. Probably do about 2.5 mil turnover, which isn't huge, but it's a lot for us considering we ain't trained. Like, we're just bouncing off the wall, getting to where we need to get to. Oh God, I'm on the way. And I'm really excited for that. But what we did do in that little brief time, which is one of my big regrets actually in my career that I didn't stick with, is so we had the leasehold valuation firm, which was going really well. And I noticed a real gap in estate agent knowledge on leasehold. They had no idea how leasehold tenure works, lease extensions, service charge, all that jazz, which I think people, you really need to be aware of if you are an estate agent, and they don't care about it. Why Rightmove doesn't make it compulsory to have all this information on their website when you look at a listing is beyond me. And we decided to launch a flat-only estate agency called Flat. Big branding, it looked incredible. And I was like, I look like an agent, I sound like an estate agent, I probably should be an estate agent. And we were trying to cash flow it, like bootstrap it. And we were bootstrapping it with the profits from the valuation firm, which subsequently was a bit of its downfall, to be fair. But we brought on 3 blocks within a month. Like the pipeline was huge. Like when I say blocks, these were like 40 to 50 unit blocks, sole agent, and I was like, we've got something here. But we unfortunately brought in the wrong people that weren't entrepreneurial people. They come from big corps. And that was part, actually, kind of rewinding a little couple segments back, why I wanted to go on the show, because I thought if the show really took off, it would give me a platform to relaunch Flat. Because we never folded it, we just wound it down because there was no outgoings as such towards the end. And that was my big regret, I think, in my career that I didn't. I may still do that again at some point, because I think there's a huge opportunity now for a flat-only agent that completely understands that market.
When you set up a valuation firm, you're obviously very good at the business development side of it, but obviously you've got to do the valuation work as well. How did you find, the way to grow and scale that business is obviously to spend time in the business, on the business, not in the business. How did you manage that in the early days?
Hard, mate. It was really hard. I was going out a lot. I was having to do 2-3 lease extensions a day, then go out in the evening with clients and manage the relationships with solicitors and freeholders. And it was really hard, mate. It really took its toll. I put on a lot of weight. I didn't really like myself, if I'm being honest, during that period of time. I was with a previous partner. That fell apart. That was a blessing in disguise, because it kind of made me realize that this wasn't the right person for me. But I did feel bad, because I wasn't there. I wasn't around for 2 years. I was just hell bent on trying to grow the business and be the business. Then we started to hire, and it started to get a little bit easier. But with that kind of business development, they want to work with you. Yeah, they want you. But but it got a little bit easier when we moved the valuation stuff all into the building surveying firm at Project&Co. That made life a bit easier because we just started to hire great people.
Yeah.
So I hired my old mate from Regis, who does like 10, who was doing like 5 to 10,000 lease extensions every kind of 2-3 years. Guy from JLL came in, like really started to make my BD life a hell of a lot easier because it means I could go and pitch. I'll still do some of the work, but I know I've got a team behind me that are the absolute, bollocks, for want of a better word. So I probably make this an 18 rated now.
Do you know what? I've had this. I've always had the explicit label on Apple for some reason, even though I don't think we ever swore in any of the episodes in the early days. And then, after seeing that and after seeing it wasn't removed, I was like, well, sod it, and we'll just have
a little swearing.
Just go full Tourette's if you really need to.
But it's a good point, mate. Being a BD and trying to be the one that's doing the bit, it's really hard. But we want to exit. That's our long-term game plan. We're trying to build a company so that we're in a position that we can sell. And I know I can't get the multiples that I'm going to require or find the buyers that I want if I am still doing all the work as a surveyor. So we've had to grow the business, and it's been a real shift, and you lose your identity. And there have been times where I felt very homeless in my own career because I was like, I'm good at BD, but BD's, as you all know, is so hard, like emotionally, especially now we're moving into the lending world. Like, I know I do a bit of work with you guys already, but you've got a great team and like a good young team. I love like working with them, but not everyone's like that.
Yeah.
Not everyone's that easy to get on with and chat to. And you get a lot of doors shut in your face and you get a lot of balls tickled and nothing comes of it at the end. And but we're getting there. But that's all about the maturing, mate. And I think that's ditching my ego and thinking I'm not the be all and end all of this company. I need to maybe step away a bit.
Well, is it fair for me to say that if you don't look like your typical valuer? Like, yeah. Well, no, as in, I think in the sense of, it's definitely a compliment because obviously you look good, but your typical valuer doesn't. If someone pictures a valuer, you are not the image that comes into the mind. So how do you battle that perception?
So
how do you combat that
perception?
Yeah,
so it's a really good point, and it has held us back before. And speaking quite frankly, the people that are maybe put off by the fact that I'll go to the gym or I have tattoos. Maybe I don't want to work with them people. If they don't want to work with me because of that, they judge me on how I look because of that. I look at it a slightly different way. I think someone that trains hard and looks after himself will look after you. Will look after you because they can look after themselves. I think we always, someone comes in with a big presence, they look fit, they look healthy. He does give off a good positive impression initially. Despite my attire today, I do like to scrub up with my tailoring. So I will happily, because I'm lucky with my tattoos, I can put a full suit on. You won't be able to see any of them. I still sound like an absolute, I don't know, like I'm selling jelly deals. But, it's a blessing and a curse because it will open some doors for you in certain relationships and stuff. Get on with stuff. You always get on well with BDMs and stuff like that just because you're that kind of ilk. But sometimes you will go to, especially when I was doing a lease selling franchisement in prime central London, that was harder. But the ironic thing is, I get on really well with old money. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what a pinky ring was till about a year ago. And I was at this meeting and I was looking around the table and everyone had a pinky ring on. I was like, why has everyone got a bloody pinky ring on? And it turns out I was with like a lord's son, like his dad was like one of the first investors in this huge venture capitalist firm. And I was just like, oh, okay, so I can easily mingle with these people. I think sometimes people just have this idea that because you look a certain way, that you can't interact with those kind of people. But it is hard. And it is like, even today, I'll be honest with you, I was really nervous about what to wear because I haven't met you before. And, I really respect what you've done and how you do it. And obviously, fundamentally, you are a bank of sorts, and...
Just for clarity, we are not a bank.
But you know what I mean? So I was like, I don't want to turn up and instantly you'll get an impression of me for being like, you might look at me and think, this guy can't do our valuations. Have you seen him? But my head of valuation covered in tattoos. Like we're the same. And I'll look at a valuer that turns up, ill-fitting suit, doesn't fit him properly, a bit overweight, whatever. He's working into the ground every day. He's doing 10 or 20, 10, 12 valuations a week. I don't think those standards are going to be anywhere near as good as someone that looks after himself, someone that takes pride in how they look. And actually, they're not running themselves into the ground. They can actually look at the valuation. They're not rushing through it, and they can take their time and do it properly. That's my view on it. That's just how I see it. And because we've never wanted to sweat our staff out. I want to make sure they're on the ball. Because I've been there when we've had to push through 5-6 valuations a day, and standards aren't the same. You don't take the same pride in the work as much as you should do. You don't. It's natural human reaction because you have to get stuff done. So yeah, it's hard. We'll get through the judgment. If people want a judgment, that's absolutely fine. But
I think the world is changing. Things like tattoos. It's like being 4, 5, 8 years apart in age. So we're not that different. Not that far apart in age, but I think perceptions are changing very quickly now. And I was sharing with a friend of mine who's called Jordan. And he said that, and there was a good Instagram reel of there's going to be there's going to be care homes full of people called Jordan with sleeve tattoos playing Call of Duty and vaping in care homes. In 50 years time. At the end of the day, we've got to. I think the world's changing. People's attitudes are changing, and I think if you are judging books by their covers. In any form of it is a sort of form of discrimination. If you take the way that someone looks and you don't assume that they can do that job. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone has inherent bias, and I'm the first to admit that I have as well. But at the same time, the smart people look beyond that and they see the potential, not the image that's in front of them. And I think it's an interesting point that you make that someone that takes care of their appearance is also likely to be someone who isn't up at 2 a.m. watching Netflix, eating junk food and getting drunk every Friday and Saturday night, to sort of numb the pain away.
Mate, I barely drink. I used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm up at 5 o'clock. I'm at the gym. I'm outside the gym for 6 o'clock when it opens every single day. Get my work done. I'm back at the gym at 5 in the evenings doing my cardio, which is when I smash through WhatsApps and emails and stuff. And I think sometimes people forget that you have to put in a hell of a lot of work. And I don't have kids, so it's easy for me to say that because I don't have children. So that I'll caveat that because I know how hard it is if you do have kids, and that does take a bit of a back burner. Yeah. But I don't know. I just think it's so. And also, just to go back to that, it's whilst it can be seen as a bit of a weakness, maybe like people might discriminate against you. You could even argue that if anything, it's actually more of an accelerator to success because, especially in stale markets, you can quickly make a name for yourself and quickly stand out and quickly grow a personal brand because you are different. You're not the same. You're not a Tarquin. No, I've actually never met anyone called Tarquin. I'd like to meet someone called Tarquin, but it propels you, and people naturally want to gravitate and not just me, but want to hang around with you because you're a bit different. They offer you something. You look like you'd be able to go and have some fun. You might be able to knock out a 45-page valuation report, but then go off to Ibiza for the weekend and then come back. So I think it's people work with people, and like Nick said on your previous podcast, people buy people, and it's a people's game property, and it's not how you look as such, it's how you treat people. And my mum, being a good Catholic woman, treated me incredibly well and treated me that just be kind, and that empathy is so important. If you haven't got empathy in the property game, for me in sales, you ain't gonna make it. And I think I'm quite blessed with that. I might look like a bit of a bro, so to speak, but I'm a gentle man.
Well, just talking about your aspirations for the business. Obviously, you said that you'd like to get an exit at some point. I think one of the challenges that you have. As a professional service business in surveying, and obviously having been in the commercial agency world for a period of time and still knowing a lot of characters in that commercial agency world. We had Michael Rabin in, who one of the partners in Compton, and
I love that.
they sold obviously they sold Hatton Reed to Colliers, and will ultimately, I think they would, if another buyer came in for Compton, they'd sell to them as well, potentially. But ultimately, your multiple is reduced because it's not always necessarily recurring in revenue, and it's very reliant on the people that are in the business. What's your plan to get around that, get around those issues so that you can benefit from that, the desired multiple that you want to achieve?
Yeah, that's great. Great point. Firstly, the guys at Compton, I think they are, if they want to look into a brand and look into grow a brand, and just look at those guys, because I know Sean, and it's incredible what they do there, like their quality. But I think for us, we know the multiple's never going to be huge. We ain't going to get the multiples you're going to get from a tech firm. We know that. You're probably lucky if you're going to get 1.5, 2, if that. So we're about turnover. And I've had to really try, and what's just been really tricky for me is balancing the personal brand with the company brand.
Well, that's also a downside, right? Because that means that you get locked in, because you don't want to get locked into the golden handcuffs, right?
Really. And having surveyors in your team that are happy to go and do BD as well is really hard as well. Because like I said earlier, if you know you can win business and do the business, they're quite often going to go off on their own. So we're looking now at how we can make ourselves more attractive to a long-term investor, purchaser. We've identified a few companies that we would like to maybe sell to in the long run. And that was one of the first things that I've learned and read, is identify your potential buyer and how you're going to get there. So we focus a lot on data at the moment. So we're really kind of building that data set up for us to make sure we've got huge amounts of data that gives us a little extra. And we're hiring the best people. And that is hard. That is one of the hardest parts of the business, is trying to bring in the best people. But we're looking at different sectors and what sectors are going to command the most value in the long run. Lending is one of those ones. Lending is a huge one. Obviously, you have some fantastic valuation panels, your VAS, your method, your appraisers. And we work with them, but that's not going to get us the big multiples. Obviously, being on the panel does help, and you are actually far enough removed from that transaction that your personal brand doesn't actually matter, because they're just dealing with the firm to a degree. So we're now just trying to put up those direct relationships with the banks directly, and it's hard, but I'm enjoying it because it's a real challenge for me. It's coming into a world where no one really knows who I am at the moment, and we're really trying to push that. And by building them up, I'm focusing on the lending side at the moment. But where we're lucky, and different to other professional services companies, like there's some lending valuers that just do lending vals. Pardon my French, but they're effed up. They're like long term, they're stuck. They ain't gonna be able to get out of that because they're all still doing all the valuation work themselves.
But also they're going to come under pressures. Under pressure as well from I think. More tech, basically. That was, I guess, my question for you was that what other areas of lending do you think that you could potentially not areas of lending, sorry. What other business areas do you think you could potentially go into that maybe could give you, that could create sort of maybe vertical integrations or perhaps give you a slightly more secure business model?
No, it's great. I think about it every single day. I'm naturally quite entrepreneurial by nature. I've got my Canva. My Canva is like a graveyard of ideas that I've had with like logos and whatever. So going back to the tech and the data, you're right. I think valuation is going to be one of those ones that is quite heavily hit. With the sophistication of AVMs, is going to become more and more sophisticated over time. They're getting there already. I think if a quick way that we'd end up putting ourselves out of business, which would actually make valuation a lot more sophisticated, would be if every single valuation firm had to use the same software and templates. And then you could pull that data quite comfortably. HMOs, for argument's sake, nightmare trying to find comparables sometimes for sold comparables to see what they've actually sold for, because they tend to trade on the grade market, and it's really difficult to kind of see what they've actually sold for. But if all the valuers put in all their information into one kind of shared data suite or data room, we could really start to sophisticate the AVM stuff. And if it's going to kill me, I think I'd rather just join the other team and then really try and work on that. with the building surveying stuff, luckily, I think with tech, they're going to struggle. That's always going to, you're always going to need the person to go and have a look at something, I think. Even though I do think, in the future, you'll be able to show a crack to an AI system that'll be able to tell you what type of crack it is and kind of where it's come from. But it is working on that data and the tech where we're really trying to, and there's some great guys out there. You got the guys at like Valos and stuff that have done some really cool stuff. CRM systems, I think, in surveying are really lackluster. And I think not sexy. It doesn't sound sexy at all, but I think there's a real opportunity where you can have integration with your lenders that allows them to kind of see what's actually going on. Because I think that's one of the big bugbears with lenders, brokers and valuers. They don't know what valuers are doing half the time, or they don't understand the delays, or they don't understand their methodology about why they've done that. And I done an article for Project&Co Commercial magazine last month, and we were just chatting about some of the issues that valuers are having and at the moment. And I think having an all-in-one system where lenders, brokers and valuers can all kind of sit in there and it all goes into each other's CRM systems and stuff, just to improve communication. But again, it's having the time to work on that and trying to run a business. I know that's just an excuse and we need to focus on that. But you're right, being aware of tech and how it could potentially really, harm your long-term exit plan is huge. But again, falling back on the personal brand, that's a lot why I do what I do. God forbid anything does go tits up. We can't because we've invested cash, we've got PGs, but having a personal brand will hopefully be your long-term ticket to getting into employment. Or I would love to go into lending in a different world, mate. In a different world. My missus is a broker. I'd love to have got into it in a different world. So we'll see what happens. But in my life, you can worry about something for so long. I would just do the best we can now and live our life. And I think people forget that sometimes. You can drown yourself in work. We're in the prime of our lives, so we need to still make sure that we look after ourselves, enjoy time with our family and stay healthy. Otherwise, you're going to regret that long term. You might have 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 million pounds in the bank, but you've lived your whole life and it's done. So I think it's important to have a bit of moderation. God knows how I went off on that tangent, but we got there.
No. We'll follow that up in a moment. Obviously, not just a building surveyor, you're not just a valuer as well. You were talking to me offline about your love of short leases. Obviously, now I see the Regis connection. I can understand why. You tell our audience about why you see great opportunity in the short lease space.
Yeah,
and why they're such good deals.
Thank you. So short lease, I like to call it short lease arbitrage. Is not necessarily a very well known investment strategy. One, because it's not that sexy, and it's quite granular in terms of how you have to deal with it. And there's not a lot of knowledge in the sector, nor is there many influencers out there that really plug it. HMOs has been the sexy thing for a while now, and people
rent to rent as well. Yeah.
Rent to rent, and people have made a lot of money out of inverted brackets coaching. Obviously, I deal with short lease properties. I have been doing that now for 15 years. Average probably 500 cases a year, give or take. And I've never, ever seen a purchase price plus lease extension cost exceed what it would be worth with a long lease. So it's a very safe, secure strategy. And inherently with short lease properties, if people haven't looked after their property interest, they've let the lease run down. And what tends to happen with those kind of ownership is you tend to have quite distressed property as well. And they tend to only find that out generally at probate or repossession. So that's the kind of stock you're dealing with. And there's a number of tranches of arbitrage when you look at buying them. So not only is the lease extension at the moment, before any reforms, designed to be profitable for the leaseholder, which everyone seems to forget. They seem to think it's robbing the leaseholder. It's not at all. It's designed to be profitable. Your flat is worth X on a short lease, plus the lease extension cost is then worth Y. It's profitable. You've also then got the next level of arbitrage, which is this distressed element to it. So, it's going to be discounted quite substantially. The cost to do the refurb is not going to be the same as the reduction. So there's another little bit of profit there. And also there's the uncertainty with short lease products at the moment, properties at the moment, because no one knows what's happening. And that means there's a lot less buyers in the market because, there's not that many lenders that truly understand it, I don't think. High street lenders won't touch it. So you're relying really on cash buyers who are sophisticated that are going to be in that market to buy them. Those sophisticated guys are going to be offering low because that's how they do it. That's how they make their money. So there's a real little sweet spot if you've got the balls to have a go at it, you know, and we'll try and buy kind of one every 2-3 months if we can. Sometimes it's like buses that'll come along loads. You just don't have the money. But just so the listeners are aware that at the moment, the government have passed a law which is going to completely change how lease extensions are calculated. And in some cases, it could reduce the prices by up to 40%. So I've had a client that's bought one in Kensington, 4-year lease at the moment. And if they remove this thing called marriage value, which is a huge element of the calculation, I mean, the windfall for them could be 300-400 grand. That's huge.
Because effectively it means the marriage value, basically it's the difference in, it's effectively the uplift, right? And so you normally share that uplift with the freeholder, right? And then you're effectively taking that away from the freeholder, which is for the likes of your old employer Regis and our friend Mark Hawthorne, Landmark, that's bad news for them. But if you are a buyer of leasehold property, it's a great result.
And I think, like my own political view, I mean, I think it's absolute robbery what the government have done with that. I've got a couple of freeholds myself, and I stand to lose a fair bit of cash from that, which is not ideal. And I'm not an unscrupulous landlord. I've acquired them from an astute buyer. But the government is going to get some backlash on this. There's going to be human rights challenges for sure. There's a couple of easy fixes they could do. But regrettably, obviously, if the Labour government do get in, Angela Rayner will be the Secretary of State, and she will be basically dictating the rates that are used to calculate these lease extensions. She has no idea about lease extensions. She has no idea about maths. It's terrifying. It's fundamentally terrifying. So what we're telling our clients at the moment is to wait with bated breath, I think, because we don't know what's going to happen. And the government are not going to want these human rights challenges because they'll go on for donkey's years.
So they won't be able to put through the changes to the law, essentially.
There were some really easy changes they could have made that would have made the whole system a lot better and fairer for everyone. But I do think it's a great strategy. I urge anyone that's looking at it to do their research and to speak with your lenders and your brokers about it, because if they understand it, it's a real good opportunity to make some real good cash.
Yeah, but with this uncertainty in the space, is that effectively creating a bit of a frozen market for short leases?
Yeah, so we've noticed it in our uptake in terms of new instructions and whatnot, and also new stuff coming to the market. So the stuff that comes to the market tends to be repossession stuff or probate stuff.
Just basically, it's not for sale. There's nothing coming to the market now.
Yeah, it's hard. And the interesting thing is that, if you've got the cash, it's well worth the risk, I think, of doing it. Yeah. There is no risk. The only risk really is that it's just going to be the same price, give or take. But it's not for the faint-hearted, and it's not really sexy. I like it because, like you say, any investment, you should do ones that you understand and you know. So that's why I think it's a really great space to be in. But I do think it's going to get busier with more people in the market in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Complete tangent. This is going to be my opening question. It's definitely a spicy one. Has anyone ever tried to offer you a bung?
Yep, they have.
How many times would you say you've been offered a bribe to
2 or 3 times? And I think people look at me and they judge. They just assume that I'll just take a bribe.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm from Essex and that's what people from Essex do. And it was a weird one because I'm not confrontational either. Yeah. So when people say that to you, you're like, okay. But for us, we never as soon as you take a bribe from someone, your asset, they have you, and they can say one thing, you're out, you've lost your whole career. I would lose everything, my employment, my staff, possibly my house. Everything could just come crashing down. Yeah. And it's been hard because sometimes, some of the numbers you see are astronomical, and some numbers you hear about from other people, not just in Surveyor, but the bribes that go around. We all know as property, they would be referred to as different terms of what they are. And it's a hell of a lot more common than you think it is, I think, in the sector. But it's how you set yourself off at the start. If you say no straight off the bat, then you're fine. You're good as gold and they won't keep pestering you. But if they see a sign of weakness, or it tends to be the smaller, like, you know, when you see some companies, you're like, how on earth have you got that? Like, that makes zero sense how you've got that gig or whatever. And, but then obviously no one would ever talk about it anyway, because they would never disclose it because it's not worth it. But we have been offered before. It was a lot more in my younger career, and it wasn't really it was more in the leasehold enfranchisement stuff. And when I say bribes, it was more along the lines of, Carl, can you just pay your cash? Can we just do this? Can we just do that? Blah, blah, blah. As much as I love to do it, of course you would. Oh yeah, give me some free cash. That'd be wonderful. It's not worth the risk to me. It's not worth effing up my whole career for it. But it's a great question, because I think you'd be surprised how many people get offered it on a daily basis.
We have our suspicions about some certain monitoring surveying firms, you know, which is not necessarily to say that anyone's been doing it, but some of the, when, you get a monitoring surveyor's report, and, he's got to pass the eye test, and you've got a site that hasn't moved on at all visually, but yet there's £1 million been signed off on that. And you know that you've got a borrower who's in financial difficulty, and you go, and you can't help but think, fucking hell, there's something moody about this. It isn't necessarily my theory. It's a former business partner of mine. He's adamant. I mean, he's from Bulgaria, so whereas this sort of this was common practice, particularly in communist times. But he's very much of the view that there is a lot within the professional services side of property and property development. There is a lot of it. I don't think it's big high level bribery, but 500 here, £1,000 here, it doesn't even have to be a cash changing hands. It could be a gift or something like that. Yeah, gifts. Good, you got. I think you're right with the monitoring stuff. The monitoring stuff, there's a huge possibility of it occurring there, because how much would you pay to get access to $1 million? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just signing off that there's a pallet of bricks that isn't actually, or a load of kitchens that haven't actually arrived on site. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's. I'm not saying. But then you lose respect for that person. As soon as someone does that, then. But the thing is, you just don't know. You just don't know. All you know is that the report, what you're seeing on the photos of that report, and what the numbers that are in the report, they don't reconcile. They don't make sense, and you're left there scratching your head, going, "How's that happened?" It's interesting, because it's weird to hear from a lender's point of view, because you don't really ever hear it from that side of things. And I think it's so important to be wary of it. But this is where I think having standard template reports would actually become more helpful, because I think sometimes people have their own individual reporting styles. Some things easily can get lost in there, and they'll try and wriggle out of a certain issue or whatever. Oh, they actually have done that, blah, 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 blah. But it's I don't know how you monitor it. I don't know how, pardon the pun. But it's a tricky one, mate. It's a really tricky one. Well, to your point around AI, I mean, one of the things I'd really like to build is that effectively it's a sort of sense check, right? We've both been through the RICS qualifications, right? And there's that principle, isn't there, within valuation? Sorry, hold on, I seem to have caught my. There's a principle within valuation, which is you get all the numbers. It's why they say valuation is an art and a science, right? You ultimately you get all the data, you put it all together, you make your comps, and you make your judgment. There's an element of judgment that make your adjustments for the comps that you put together, and then the subject property. But at the end of it, you stand back, and the principle is you stand back and look, don't you? You stand back and look. You go, does this make sense? After considering all of this, does this make sense? And what I'd like to build and develop is, particularly on the building side, is training an AI model. So we've now had in the best part of £1 billion worth of bridging and development loans. You feed in monitoring surveyors reports, and you show the progress photos, and you have corresponding figures. So you can train an AI to know, right? This development is X% progressed based on the images that I'm seeing. and I know that the total build facility is Y. So this is how much should have been spent on site, and this is what the cost to complete is. So I think that technology is going to be available. You know, I think technology is already there effectively, and it's just about, you know, just building a tech platform that, you know, that can actually handle those kind of inputs to be able to so that we as lenders, when we're presented with an MS report, you know, a lot of the time we only have the MS report because the funding line expects us to have it. It's the same it's the same also with a lot of red book vals, to be fair, on the same side. So if you've got that, I think then you've got that degree of, I think you'll have a degree of protection against that.
I think that'd be great, mate. And I think that'd be so important to try and eradicate. And one thing I would say is, though, I think sometimes in some defence of some monitoring surveyors, I don't always think it's bribe related. I sometimes just think they will get immense pressure from said lender.
Yeah.
And I've had clients, I mean, I don't do monitoring surveyor myself. I know our firm do, but I've had clients on like lease extensions and stuff where they're horrible, nasty people, and they do put an immense pressure on you to get a deal over the line.
Mm.
Obviously, you can't do any bribery. It's very tricky in lease enfranchisement work, but I know what it's like. And surveyors inherently are quite timid creatures. I don't always think it's bribery, but while they will push something through, maybe they're not at the right standard, but it'd be intimidation from said applicants when they go and meet them on site and take them around and stuff. And imagine you're just a young lad that you're on site and you've got this massive, big, scary geezer like saying like, "You're going to sign us off today. You're going to sign us off today." It's not worth it. It's not worth their hassle, is it? You know, it's not ultimately. They still want the jobs to get. As long as they are confident it's still getting done. But imagine if God forbid something happens to them. I can see it from that side of things as well. So I completely see why there's concern over bribery, but I can also see from the surveyor's point of view if they have been in a situation where they are intimidated or are threatened. I know they should declare it, but
to that point, the threat point actually is a really valid one, because we had a situation fairly recently in that we've got a relatively small, I'd call it's more of a refurb than development, but it's a quite heavy refurb, and the monitoring surveyor hadn't been seeing eye to eye with the client and went to do an inspection, a progress inspection, and when the surveyor arrived, there were 6 burly blokes, builders, all, kind of menacingly holding tools as the surveyor went through the property. And that was fed back to us. And we were when I heard that, I was like, right, okay, playtime's over. We're not having any of this, because that's just ridiculous. Because if they, if that's how they're going to treat your monitoring surveyor, if they're willing to, sort of nakedly threaten our professional, how they're going to conduct themselves going forwards in this. When we come to the end of the term, and they aren't at PC, or there's we're dealing with cost overruns now. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to the property? How are they going to conduct themselves? How are they going to behave themselves in a public forum? What are they going to say about us? So, for me, not acceptable. But I think highlights your point, which is that they are. This is something that will happen, and that's probably more of the case than the sort of dishonesty bribery bit. But I think it's fair to say that I reckon it'd be hard to deny that.
Oh, of course,
both happen.
Estate agents are the main ones. They're the ones, but then they can do what they want, can't they? Yeah. I think we've all paid finder's fees before, but but then it makes the world go round, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's so hard to ever root out. But for me personally, I've just always had to try and do it ethically, because God forbid something goes tits up, then I can't. It's not worth the risk. I mean, even when you hire surveyors, you have to make sure you go through all the rigmarole, because they'll be getting offered stuff as well. Like it's just the world. People, especially wheelie dealers, they're always going to be offering stuff. So it's such a good question. It's such a value. I'm glad you asked it. Actually, I wasn't expecting anything that spicy. I wasn't like a chicken korma or something. So
we did we did say it was going to be sort of a three chili episode in terms of spice.
John, mate, I love just being able to chat about this thing. It's hard to be able to talk to this in this honesty and this openness sometimes in the sector, and on an open platform. I just hope that there'll be surveyors listening to it that kind of, or maybe reach out and just be like, do you know what, like, it's nice to actually hear someone in the sector actually being a bit honest about stuff, and I'll probably get told off when I get home.
Well, I mean, and obviously, if you disagree with anything that I've said, or you want to tell me that, how dare you? Then also please let us know, and let us know as publicly as possible, so we can get the hashtag ratings. Speaking of which, you've also got your own podcast as well. To those of our audience who've been under a rock, can you say a little bit more about that? What it's called? And
it's called Candid Chat. It started up during lockdown when things were getting a bit quiet, and I lost a lot of my mojo. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to see if I can get a podcast in the charts. I was obviously going through I didn't drink for like 18 months. I was in a good space. I love lockdown. It was great. And I'm going to try and do a podcast and try and get into the charts. And we managed to do that into the entrepreneurial charts. We were number 11, which was great in iTunes. There was an algorithm though, not because my podcast is particularly brilliant, but we started off with people we knew. There was a few solo ones which were more cathartic than anything else. Yeah. Sometimes it's quite nice just to verbalise your thoughts and emotions. And then we started directly messaging guests, and a lot of time people said no. Actually, I asked Daggers and he said no. Well, didn't say no, just didn't respond. But you had to deal with the rejection on these things, and we had a couple of apprentice winners, which were really cool.
That's cool, yeah.
So, some multimillionaires. We've had some big names from the coaching world in property. But hats off to you, mate. Like, how you've done so many episodes is incredible. I think we got to about 30 odd, and then it was just finding, you'll know exactly what it's like, to finding the time, the space to do it. It's hard. And then people will be flaky. And I think they forget how much of a compliment it is if you ask them to be on a podcast, or you get the opportunity to be on the podcast. It's a huge compliment for them. And so we've slowly wound it down. I'm not saying I won't ever bring it up again. But it's at the point now where my time's so valuable that I'd rather maybe look at focusing on a podcast that I can start monetizing a little bit. But I'm more focusing on our events stuff that we do now, which is my main focus, and ultimately something that will be what I'm remembered for in the sector in the long run. So that's the game plan.
Yeah. And what do you, for your events, apart from maybe making a few quid from the hosting of it, but what I know of it, they're not huge money spinners anyway. What do you mainly look to get from those events?
So they're called Prop Party. That's our name. Which actually I have to thank Mark Hawthorne for, actually. I wanted to create events that weren't stifling, weren't boring, and gave everyone an opportunity to kind of network in an environment that they felt comfortable with. We've done the first one on a boat in August last year. We had 300 people sold out on a boat. And then we hosted another one on the same day as the bloody massive awards. I can't remember which one it was in Lending. We had 450 people at the last one, all paying over 120 quid each. So they generate money. We did another one at Christmas called the Pro Party, which is the next one.
Okay.
But for me, mate, it grows your personal brand. I just like being able to see people and see people having fun. We had 5 the band headline in the last one.
Oh, nice.
The first one, I had a nice sculpture of myself, which was interesting. And it was basically a vodka luge. So they drank out of my shoulder, basically. And,
I had something a bit more full body.
No, I did want that.
A vodka luge.
No,
that was definitely get cancelled material.
No, it would have been a little spout as well, so it wouldn't have been great for the people, right? So, and it melts really quickly as well, so it's not great. But there was satire when I had that. Like, I wanted people to see the satire, because at the time my show was due out on the Monday. This was on the Thursday, and I was like, it's going to be massive. So we're going to keep trying to push that. I'd love to talk to you about something separately, because I know you do a lot of work with. You do work with Prop, didn't you?
The Props Awards, yeah. I
don't know if you saw my comment on it, because I commented. They done they were hashtagging Prop Party, and I commented it from Pro Party. I was like, we should talk, because saying that really seeing the branding. But I want to do a charity event from the lending sector, because I think the lending sector has got a lot to give, and I don't make any money from it, give it all into charity. Called Lend Us a Hand. It's kind of what I do. That's the name. But I like the pro play stuff. For me, it's a real good chance to give something back to the community. Grow my own personal brand completely selfishly. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that's a big thing. But also, it's nice, mate. Just enjoy yourself. Don't you want fucking stressful. Trying to organise an event for that many people, trying to deal with boy bands was hard. I was having a Nando's with 5. I was just sitting there. Scott from 5 works for South End Radio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he took my number down as well at the end. He never texted me, but yeah, like trying to hire bands. I mean, 5 or 10 grand. Craig David wanted 120 grand for 45 minutes.
Well, it's quite a big difference.
You remember the Venga Boys, don't you?
Yeah.
25 grand for 45 minutes.
Who had more hits, 5 or Venga Boys?
I mean, I remember Boom 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 and we're going to Ibiza. That's probably about it. Five were incredible, and I'd have them again. But I think we're going to ditch that and just focus on quality of people. So the people we've got there, we had various lenders, brokers, surveyors. We try not to have too many surveyors. We don't want them there. Estate agents, and just try and make a good event, mate. So I think some of your boys were down there as well, actually. Yeah. So we're going to keep pushing that podcast a bit on the back burner for now, and just try and be, I don't know, just try and make a positive influence to the sector. That's all I want to do, and let people judge me when they meet me. That's all.
Well, in terms of obviously you're very keen to grow your personal brand. Have you thought about, of doing a sort of Gary Vee style videographer, tracking your life, I guess maybe a Netflix type series, having been through that, you don't want to do something so contrived. Is that something that you'd consider? Obviously you got Zach here with you today on your work experience. You get a marketing intern to follow you around with a camcorder.
I think about that every day, mate. I would absolutely love to do it. I've done 1 or 2 videos. Like I've done my full house refurb recently, which we documented, which was great. It's 2 things: money and time. So you're looking at like 1,200 to 1,500 quid for a proper video, and to keep it
per day,
and to get the algorithms flying, you've got to be doing 1-2 videos a day. I would love to do it because I just love to give back and just say that, like, I'm by no means a success. I've made so many mistakes, and I'll continue to make a lot more mistakes, but I've done some all right things as well, and my life's relatively interesting. I'm an absolute idiot when it comes to buying things, and I don't, I rush into stuff, but it's a good thing, and it's always with a good heart. So I'd love to do it. We're looking to do some more short lease stuff, but again, that's pretty niche. I just for me, mate, I just know when I was a younger lad, I just wish there were guys like myself, like yourself, like just who I could look up to a little bit more. Back then, there wasn't really that wasn't really around. It was your footballers, Ant and Dec, Dick and Dom. Don't know. That's about it. There wasn't many people there you could look up to. So I just want to, if I can help. Like, we done a mental health conference a couple of years ago, and I'd really like to do that again, where we put a free of charge conference on to focus on mental health in the property game. We had about 200 people there, free of charge, came down, and then we had people come on, spoke about their own personal battles, and then that was it. It was literally just come on, speak about yourself, come off, speak about yourself, come off. It was great. It was really, 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 really good.
Like a group therapy session, basically.
Pretty much, but it's people you'd never expect. So top dogs, like company owners, multi-millionaires, like big names in the sector, in our little world. This is the property management world. So yeah, I don't know. I will keep looking at events, keep trying to grow my personal brand as much as I can. Try and release the content, but like we just said earlier, LinkedIn don't like videos, even though they have added the scrolling thing now. I don't know if you've seen that. So if you watch a video on your phone, and then you can now scroll up. So I do think LinkedIn will start monetizing stuff shortly, or there will be a way to do it.
Yeah. And
I'm just want to make sure I'm right on the wave when that comes in. So
yeah. I mean, I think one of the downsides from a social media perspective is that ultimately there's however good your content is in our space, in your space, you're it's difficult to go viral, isn't it? Because it's still whichever way you cut it, it's still still a relatively small niche that we sort of that we're creating content for. So, but notwithstanding that, I'm sure you'll absolutely smash it as within the realms of that.
Thank you, mate. I mean, one more thing I just get on the YouTube shorts, just the one for this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And we cut them up because this content's great, mate. You'll get 10, 20 pieces of short form content.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to get some guidance from you on that, because we've got a few shorts out there now on the channel, but it's still, I wouldn't say we're troubling the algorithm that much.
No, you just got to keep plugging away. It's demoralising. You post something, you think I post a video that was a Brooklyn Nine-Nine spoof. So I use green screen, everything. I'm in this Brooklyn Nine. I'm fully in the episode.
So you spent all that time, money, effort getting it done, right? And
then you'll get someone post something about a pet dog, and I was like, what the fuck?
We have at Avonmore, Sophia has got like 40-odd thousand followers on TikTok.
Nice.
One of her followers is Rita Ora.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and she's got she mainly posts about her kittens and her cats, and she's one of her videos got 4 million views. So there you go. You
can't beat yourself up back. It's what it is.
People like cats. Do you know what I mean? Like people just like cats and dogs and stuff like that. Look, well, I think we're running short on time now, but I just last question for me is that considering the journey you've been on, right? If you were to speak to your younger self when you were sort of, I don't know, 17, 18, finishing your A-levels, before you were about to go and sample the delights of Portsmouth Wetherspoons, what would you say to yourself and why?
Back yourself, and just because you never... it's a really good question. I wasn't ready for that one. I think it's... God, you throw me there. I get emotional.
Okay. Never had anyone cry on.
That'd be good. That'd be good clickbait, wouldn't it? Crying. I get the algorithm going, wouldn't it? Just believe in yourself and just be you. Just keep being you. Don't change. Just keep being you. Not everyone will like you. Don't matter. Just keep being you, and eventually you'll plug away and you'll get to where you need to get to. And the best day the rest of your life is still to come. Done.
Love it. Colin, loved having you on. It's been a pleasure. Where can our audience find you?
So there'll be many people here that unfortunately follow me on LinkedIn, but I'm one of the more prevalent people on LinkedIn who post pretty much every day, and you get exactly the same kind of content on there. If not, you can find me on Instagram at CJN Horton, which is mainly pictures of my dog and cars and girlfriend. But for professionally, just want any advice on anything, I'm always happy to reach out at Project&Co, which is Project Surveying, or projectsurveyors.co.uk. But LinkedIn's great, and just drop me a line on LinkedIn, and I'll always do what I can to help.
All right, nice one. Colin, thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and we'll have you on again soon.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.